Well, apologies for a couple of minutes of a delay there. We are now live. I know you guys can't hear the guests talking right now, but they're all wondering where the heck Adam was, and now they're about to find out, I guess. So anyway, folks, welcome to this very special Final Fantasy 15 anniversary stream. It's been 5 years. For some of these folks, it's been a lot longer than that, but what a journey it's been. I'm delighted to be surrounded by some wonderful special guests today. We're going to be here for about an hour. Then after that, I'm going to let our guests go, and then I have to come back and I have to introduce you to the 4 wonderful events that we have planned in Los Angeles, London, England, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and Melbourne, Australia. So lots of exciting things to talk about today. But hey ho, let's get into it. Let's start with some introductions. I'm going to wake up the microphones, everyone. You are now live. Hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Hello. Hello. So
doing?
We're gonna do it in the order of how I've got it displayed for everyone to see here. So if everyone could introduce themselves, I'll just start with your name. So Ray, if you could introduce yourself to everyone.
Hey guys, my name is Ray Chase. I play Noctis in Final Fantasy 15.
Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Matthews. I play Sandy in Final Fantasy 15.
Chris.
Hey everyone, my name is Harada. I was the community manager for the Final Fantasy 15 franchise.
Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Faia. I play Gentiana in Final Fantasy 15.
Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan, and I am the former community manager at Square Enix who worked on Final Fantasy 15.
I'm good at
And Keythe.
Hi, I'm Keythe Farley. I was the... Whatever they're saying is absolutely 100% true. I agree. I concur.
There you go.
Adam, we're getting quite a bit of background sound from your camera there.
Yeah, let me mute it. Hold on one sec.
Keythe, go ahead.
Just wait till I let the dogs in. Keythe Farley. I was the casting and voice director for Final Fantasy 15.
And Adam, don't forget to unmute.
Hi guys, I'm Adam Croasdell. I played Ignis in Final Fantasy 15, or at least voiced him.
And Adam got all our hearts pumping. He turned up at the last second, and I was like, how can I reach him? So I grabbed WhatsApp and caught him, but it seems he's out and about. At least you weren't in bed. That's a good start. So
yes,
look,
absolutely. Apologies.
it's okay. Don't worry about it. Where are you, Adam?
I'm currently in Calabasas.
Okay.
Apologies, I was a little bit poorly yesterday, so I'm a little bit off my game. And that's
Okay.
why I'm out here in the middle
It's
of
all
nowhere,
good.
4-hour Zoom call.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Nice to see you all.
So look, thanks to everyone for joining me, and thanks to everyone who's in the chat who's joined us for this special occasion. Wow, 5 years is a long time. There's a lot to talk about in a very short space of time, so I'm just going to kind of jump into it. Apologies that we don't really have much time to reminisce in the beginning here, but look, I'd like to start with you, Dan, if I can. I think we can agree that you joined Square in 2014, even though I think you had to think about it too, but I think that's correct in saying. So 2014, when you came into Square, where were we on the 15 front at that point?
It was right at the beginning. Well, I say not right at the beginning. That was the announcement at E3 a couple of years before. I joined. It was actually quite a turbulent time because I joined. I work in. For those of you who don't know, I'm based in London. I worked in the European office, and the week I joined was the week they were moving office. So there was, I come in. I didn't have a desk. Everything was all over the place. Theaterism actually came out. Theaterism Final Fantasy Curtain Call was coming out that week. And one of my TGS Tokyo Game Show was the week after, and one of my first jobs actually was to help draft the communications to announce episode Duskai. So that's when I joined the company, and then obviously episode Duskai and the whole Final Fantasy 15 marketing campaign and promotion began from Tokyo Game Show literally the week after I joined.
Right, so it was pretty full on. Now, I actually recorded a commentary version with some of the glaive for Kingsglaive, and one of the questions that they were really curious about, which I want to kind of bring up from the onset, is during the production of 15, how soon did you find out about the Kingsglaive movie? Because obviously we didn't find out about it until quite late in the game, and I'm just wondering because during the commentary, and that commentary will be shared with everyone tomorrow. Even a lot of people at Square were kept in the dark until right towards the end. Was that the case for yourself?
No, actually, I found out on my second week on the job.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam. Actually, I was very fortunate enough to go to Tokyo Game Show to help with the announcement of episode Tuskai in Final Fantasy 15. And as part of that, the what was known back then is BD2, the development team. They had basically like a company or team town hall where they kind of went over where everything was at with the game, and they knew that they had the international visitors for TGS, and as part of that, there was like a whole presentation on everything that was going on with the game, and Kingsglaive was, at least it was mentioned then. We didn't, I don't think we saw anything of it, but we just knew of its existence. But that was a very, very small group of us that were out there. The rest of the team at Square Enix didn't find out until a couple of months later, I believe. I can't remember the exact date, but obviously people needed to know because they needed to plan for, you know, the whole campaign. So they needed to know all the different parts.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we knew fairly new early on.
So your job was as community manager, and Harada, your job has some overlap, but yours was specific to the franchise of 15, right? So maybe you could tell us a little bit how about you came on to Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my career has been a little interesting. So prior to going into marketing, I was actually an animator. So funny enough, and it's funny that we're talking about Kingsglaive, years before even joining Square Enix and having the privilege to join Square Enix, actually was working on the previs and layout at this company called Third Floor down in Southern California. And there was a project, and I won't say the project name, but there was a project name, and I was like, oh, cool, that's kind of an edgy project name, whatever. But then I was working on this sequence and everything like that. They didn't have the models just yet. And then I remembered, because I was a fan of, ever since 2006 when Final Fantasy Versus 13 was announced and everything. And I, was watching. And then in 2011, there was this one particular character, with a hat and everything like that, which was Arden. When I saw that the model was Arden, I was like, I know what this is, because they don't tell you when you're working on like projects and stuff like that, and animating and everything like that. So I was losing my mind at that moment, and just being an all-around fan, and that was years prior. And then before joining, and I was working directly with Square Enix Japan. So Tabata-san was the one who brought me on and everything like that. It was a few years before, and just having just interpersonal relationships, and also kind of like helping with marketing, because during that time I was actually working at a small little company that we're not streaming on right now, but called Twitch. So and I learned the power of community through that, because that was when I was making my transition. I was like, I worked on a few movies here and there, and I was like, I like animation, but I'm more of a chatterbox, just like you, Alex. So I was like, what could I possibly explore? So I was fortunate enough to work at the Twitch headquarters, learned a lot about community there. And then through that, I was actually having dialogue with Tabata-san and Square Enix Japan, and basically telling them, because in the midst, there was some announcements. Now it's called Luminous Productions, but they were like, well, what should we do and everything? And I said, I genuinely believe in, at this time, marketing was very different, and it was having an upswing with community. Like in 2016, you weren't cool if you didn't have this like cheaply made purple hoodie, right? So I was like, community is where it's at. And then through that and those communications, Tabata-san just kind of like pushed and had me stationed primarily in the LA office, but I did go to Japan a few times to work with them as well, and the whole team. And I basically was hired to harass Dan and learn so much from Dan Seto. So really now my new job, I really owe a lot to Dan. So thanks, Dan, for dealing with me.
Glad I could help.
I was waiting for his sarky response, but it was actually quite nice. It was quite a heartwarming moment. Disappointed. So, it's really interesting because you guys had a lot of overlap in what you did, but then again, you really didn't in the same breath. So it's really kind of interesting to see. But it must have been really exciting for you, for Harada, to be brought on, to work on 15. I know you're really passionate about Final Fantasy. That must have been really exciting. And I know, Dan, you felt the exact same way. Joining Square was a huge deal, right? Let's look more into the production. Keythe, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I know that we had tried to get you to, I think it was Vancouver for KupoCon in 2018, I think it was. And then I think you were officiating your daughter's wedding. I think it was that weekend.
was somebody's wedding that weekend. I think it might have been a niece.
Right. I think it was a family member. I remember that. And so unfortunately we couldn't make it work, but it's a real pleasure to have you here today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to be involved with the project and kind of what your role entailed.
Well, I got a call from Tom Hayes at Rocket Sound, and I'd worked with Tom a few times on a couple of different projects when he was at Technicolor Sound, which eventually Technicolor and sound, I guess, didn't go together, so they sort of split off.
Right.
And Tom started his own company called Rocket Sound. And he called me up to cast a fantasy project, was about all I knew at that time. And then I started getting the materials in, and a really interesting order to sort of look off the beaten path a little bit. They wanted a sort of a Star Wars approach. I guess that's the best way to put it, is to find really talented actors who aren't the sort of people that everyone in the video game community already knows.
Right.
So, they knew that these characters could easily be filled by a couple of dozen different actors that would have high name recognition, but they wanted the characters to be the focus rather than the names. So it was really fun for me when you get a call like that to be able to dig down a little deeper, and you still get the submissions from, the agents are sending you some of the big guns, but to really be able to also sift through and dig down a little deeper to find folks who were really talented actors who maybe hadn't quite broken yet, or had broken in other arenas but weren't known for video games. So we did a round of casting for the demo, and brought people back for callbacks in that situation with a handful of different actors for each role.
Right.
Some that you might know and most that you wouldn't.
Right.
And we were able to cast this amazing main cast from that group. And then the project went on for 4 years, and toward the last day we did a little over-under betting, like how many actors do you suppose we've cast in Final Fantasy 15 actors? And we started at what about 100? No, it's over 100. Okay. 200? It's over 200. 250? Over 275. And then we got the over-under at about 275 actors. We checked the Excel database and found out that we had cast 327 actors for well over 1,000 roles in this game, which is many, if not most, of the folks who are working in voiceover in Los Angeles. So it was a huge project, and to be able to have Dan Inouye sitting next to me at the table to take me through the story. We had the great good fortune to be able to take the story chronologically from chapter 0 to chapter 10 straight through. Now, we would sort of move along with the story and then go back and grab gameplay and AI and stuff like that. But for the story, we were moving chronologically through. So it was a real gift to be able to tell this story from scratch, which is something you don't often get.
Right.
I was also working on another huge project at the time, and I come to work and there's a script on the table for me, and it says Cairo. And I'm like, great, Cairo. Open up the script. It says the player wakes up on a subway in Cairo. They got to run, they interrogate somebody, and then there's an attack, and then they got to get to the exfil point and get out of there. Great start to the game. I record this episode. About 2 weeks later, I get an episode that's labeled Prologue. And I said, oh, so this comes before Cairo. And they're like, dude, Cairo's like level 7. Prologue is the beginning. And I've been working on this game for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks at this point.
Right.
And I said, listen, in order for me to be the most effective director I can be, you got to tell me the story.
Right.
So, and that was never a problem that we had with Square and with Dan. And they gave me a lot of leeway.
So when it came to the casting, did you get like to pick whoever you wanted for it, or was it like a collaborative decision, or?
I pick groups. That's my job, is to sort of winnow down the 100, 110 submissions for each character down to 10, 12, 15.
Okay.
And then...
Like the cream of the crop kind of thing.
From my point of view, yeah.
Okay.
And I always try to sort of sort it out. So like, here's how I hear it. Here's some interesting reads that maybe you hear it this way because they're really interesting. And then a few that are out of left field.
Right. And I'm right in saying that I think in Adam's case and in Ray's case, I believe, and maybe I'm not sure in Renee and Erin's case, but Ray, didn't you audition for another part apart from Noctis? I'm sure Adam, you did you not?
That's the case with everything. It's whatever your agent sends you, because I guess that's the real first. That's the first winnowing, is all the roles get sent to all the agencies, and then they select you for what they think you're good at. And I read for Gladio and for Ignis, and I got them totally wrong. Right. My Ignis was, I was like, oh yeah, I'm Ignis, hello. It was completely wrong. My Gladio is all right, he's gruff, but I was always meant for Noctis for sure.
I feel like we should have an episode with that version of Ignis. I'd actually play that. I think that would be quite enjoyable. No offense, Adam. It would totally be a totally different take on it. So, I mean, Keythe, you had the joy of working with pretty much everybody, really, didn't you? Like, we're going to talk about like the episodics that came after and Comrades, and we're going to talk about a bunch of other stuff. But I just want to get to the voice actors. So we have Ray, Erin, Renee, and Adam with us today. We'll start in the top corner. Ray, this is kind of the game that just kept giving. I kind of feel like it would be faster for me to name the games you're not in these days than to name the games you are. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
9 times out of 10, I play a game, I go, that's Ray. Yeah, that's Ray. So
it's because of Keythe finding me in the first place. That was definitely where I got my start doing it was my first ever real live Union video game, and to have it be something that I played a character that was in a story that was told in chronological order with the care and precision that Keythe and Dan and Matt, the writers, gave to it. It's insane. It's just the greatest gift of all, for sure.
Literally, my question was going to be is like, what kind of impact did it have? And you've summed it there. Did you have any idea of what kind of like you knew what Final Fantasy was? You were a gamer prior. Like, did you foresee the impact that it was going to have on your career and your life?
No, not at all. Because I did play Final Fantasy when I was a kid, but it was all unvoiced, and I didn't know about the culture of voice actors like it is now. I would just see their names at the end of, you'd see Charles Martinet at the end of a game that you played and go, oh, that cool, whatever. But now there really is a culture of people following and caring about voice actors in a way that has never happened before. And I'm very fortunate to have been a part of this upstream in that culture.
Awesome. Erin, it's great to have you here. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to you voice to voice. So thank you very much for being here. I'm curious. So the opportunity to voice Cindy, how did it come around? Was it just agent came to you, opportunity, in you go, do an audition, the usual?
I auditioned from home.
Okay.
So back then we were doing that. And I didn't know anything about the project, or I already knew Keythe. Keythe and I had known each other for a while through mutual friends and work and stuff. So when I showed up and there's Keythe, I'm like, great. And he says, you probably figured out what this game is by now. And I was like, no, but thank you for presuming I'm that clever. It was all, code names and all that. And he said, Final Fantasy 15. And I was like, wow, because I've done a lot of games. I'm not a great gamer.
Right.
I don't play.
That's okay.
But this is a franchise, obviously, that everybody knows that. So it was very exciting. And Cindy's just so fun, and Keythe is so great.
I don't think I've ever heard a bad word about Keythe. Either he pays people really well, or he's got a very
Yeah.
threatening aura that just like you don't want to say a bad word because Keith's going to send. He'll come around with the
He's a
ukulele.
very big man.
He'll come around with the
He's very
ukulele, play you a little lullaby, and then his dog will savage you to death. Is that
That's
how
right.
the Keith
Yes,
thing
we're all
works?
terrified, no, but don't tell him I said that. Oh God, he could hear that. Oh.
Erin, I'm curious, when you went in, so you auditioned, you said you did that remotely, and then you go in and you meet Keythe. So at the point, did you know that if you had the role or not at that point or not? Or was this like a second round kind of thing?
I don't remember did we do callbacks, Keythe, or?
I seem to remember we did callbacks for Cindy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we met. That was at the White Cow studio.
And did you have the accent pinned down? Like, Keythe, did you know what they were going for Cindy?
Well, it's an interesting look for the character, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, they give a pretty good description of the character. So yeah, we just knew it was living Dolly Parton adjacent.
Right.
For sure.
it's
Well, I
definitely-
also, speaking of Dolly Parton, I did not see Cindy until we arrived to do work. And I was like, okay, I'm worried she's going to hurt herself under all those cars with hardly any clothes on, but
Yeah, I'm under strict instructions not to talk about her assets, so we'll move on. Renee, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Completely different role, say, compared to Cindy. Gentiana is like this very mystical, woman who just appears out of nowhere and offers these messages. Talk us through the audition process. Did you go in for your audition? Did you remotely submit?
I believe the first one I did from home, the first audition, and I feel like it was like a year later. There might have been a callback between there, but it was called Project Black at the time. It was very mysterious. And so then a year later, my agent calls and said, you booked Project Black. And I'm like, wait, what is that? That was like, it was a year. I felt like it was a year later. And so I went in again and I met Keythe, and I can't remember. There was a callback. I know there was a callback. But it was a great experience, even the callback. It was just easy. He does make things really easy, and he is an amazing director. So I just brought this character's voice. I remember they wanted otherworldly, nondescript, pretty mystical, mysterious. And I just was pulling a couple different accents together. And then it just sort of came out as that. And it was an unusual accent.
It's almost got a
But
little
I
bit of
think
European-ness to it. Maybe I'm hearing.
yeah,
it
sort of this what's that?
It's almost like English would not be like the primary language when you're talking it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like a bit of staggeredness to it, which I think it works for the character really well.
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
imagine if you flip the voice of Cindy and Gentiana, it would be a completely messed up game, right?
Right.
We could try that sometime.
Try that, yeah.
So, Keythe, again, you say with each of the characters, when they provide you with kind of, let's say, creative direction, I guess, on what you want for each character, do they give you imagery that you can go on to base that on, or is it just like a short description, a bio?
Sometimes they did. Often they did. For the main characters, we had good bios. As you start to get to the secondary and tertiary characters, there's just less and less information when you're talking about,
Right.
1,000 or more characters.
Right.
It eventually just got to the point where I just got to pick people
Right.
to come in. I mean, when you get to that place where it's just like, we got to fill the world, and we need older men, older women, middle-aged men, middle-aged women, kids. We need everything.
Right.
And it was really a joy at that point to be able just to pick people and have people in that I already knew, and to be able to meet some folks.
Had
listen
you
to a lot of
worked with
demos.
everybody previously?
No, never had met Ray. Never met Robbie.
Well, you know
never met
Ray
Adam.
now. Like, I'm pretty sure
I had-
we mentioned this in the last stream. You did.
I know Ray
You did
pretty
his
well.
wedding.
You talked
didn't
about
you?
me marrying my
Yeah,
niece. That was
like, yeah.
preparation to marry
Yeah,
Ray
yeah.
and Julia.
Yeah.
Yes, during
I
the
was
middle of
honing
COVID.
my craft.
I had sent Keythe a fan letter years before because I saw that he gave, because I'd finished playing Mass Effect, and I was really impressed. And then I looked him up and I was like, oh my gosh, he teaches. I would love to take classes from him one day. And he said, yeah, sure, one day. And then I didn't hear back.
Awkward.
But yeah, it ended
You
up being
stayed with it anyway, and that's
stayed
what
with it.
makes great.
You proved him wrong.
Yeah.
Renee, you mentioned that it was about a year before you heard back. I feel like this is something that's not uncommon. Like it can be quite some time before you hear back on stuff, and a lot of voice actors seem to say, "Oh, I completely forgot about the role," until my agent calls up and goes, "Actually, you got the part." And you're like, "Oh shit, that was like a long time ago." So it must be kind of cool to have that, just happen for you. Adam, talk us through it. I know that you went in and you had different ideas, and I know that we've discussed this once before. Is that you kind of had I think it was like a Basil Fawlty kind of idea for Ignis. Right? That's what you went in originally.
That was sort of it. Yes, exactly. I think with my original sort of, I think I sent in something from home like the other guys did, and then when I had my call back, I went in with Keythe, and I was trying to sort of pick up on Ignis's humor, and I don't know why, but the image of Basil Fawlty kept coming into my mind. I mean, obviously, that's not what we ended up going with. Sort of getting progressively more frustrated and angry, and Keythe was sort of like, well, look, I've discussed it later on. He was like, I've discussed it with sort of people further up the sort of pipeline, and we're thinking no, rather think more Bond. So it brought everything right down, cooled it right down. And I think it was obviously a masterful piece of direction, because obviously it gave Ignis his sort of tactician sort of mind, and his unflappability, which I think is obviously much more the character.
Now, Keythe let out a little chuckle when we were talking about the Basil Fawlty. Do you recall, like, when you were coming to bring Ignis to life and meeting Adam?
I think Fawlty would have been hysterical. I don't know how long he would have lasted in the car with the three other guys, but
that's fair.
I love that. Love that idea that he's so smart that everything just nobody can touch him and everything riles him up.
Had it already been decided that he was going to have a British accent? Was that something that was like bioed in?
It's one of those where they're sort of looking for a feel for the character. So I think it was probably like British was an option. Because
I don't know if this is common knowledge and I'm just too stupid that I didn't realize it, but in the Kingsglaive movie, everyone who has, and if I'm wrong, correct me, everyone who has an American accent is from the city, and everyone who had like a British accent was a immigrant that had been let into the city. And then when I started to think about that, and I started to think about how Ignis has a British accent, I was like starting to put together a bigger picture, but who knows. Keythe, going in when you were doing the game, how much knowledge did you have about Kingsglaive as that was happening at the same time?
I think we found out about Kingsglaive like at an event.
Right.
I think it was one of those
when, like the one on stage where they announced it.
Yeah, at the shrine. We went to the shrine, and it was like, "There's a movie." No, I think we knew about it a little bit ahead of that, but it didn't really register because there was so much work to do.
Yeah.
That it was like, oh, by the way, there's going to be a movie, and it's going to be taken care of by a whole other team, and some of the folks that were on the team for our demo, hopped over there and focused on that. And we were able to sort of go forward.
Now, I know there was quite a bit of development from the demo, something I've talked to Ray about before, how the voice of Noctis changed. Why did that change come about? Was that something that you as the creative team said, no, we want to change the voice a little bit, it's not quite working, or is that from public feedback, or what was that made you kind of revisit the voice?
Ray, do you remember?
Yeah, it was from Tabatasan himself, and I think it was because they did a big survey. I believe where all the community managers are nodding. Yeah, they know all the survey results. But it was a lot of feedback because me and Chris sounded the same in our Gladio. Sounded the same a lot in our efforts. It didn't really fit the character. We were playing around because we recorded it two different ways. One with a lighter pitch that ended up being the voice we used, and then one with the deeper because we were like, well, he's in his 20s, so maybe he's a little bit older sounding. So we weren't sure. But yeah, it was the similarity of the voices, and I always have Keythe my undying gratitude for going to bat for me, which never happens in this business, to say let Ray re-audition which I had just come that same month. I was on another big project where they just recast without even asking if I could do a different voice. I was playing a 40-year-old and they wanted him to be younger. And I was like, oh man, I would have been perfect for that. But that's just the status quo. But Keythe went against the grain. This is why we talk about him as such a cool dude, is because he stands up for people that he cares about. And that's why we care about him so much.
So just so I'm on the same page, you're saying if it wasn't for Keythe, then the opportunity would have been recast and, someone else would have been
100%,
okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
They did sound a lot alike. I mean, that is absolutely true. We started with an impression of Noctis that he was sort of, kind of disaffected youth and was just sort of like, whatever. And that lower voice print that we got out of Ray just sat right next to what Chris was doing for Gladio, which was, that sort of bigger, sound. Sam Elliott without the accent. And yeah, you could hear it when you listen back. It was like, oh yeah, those two guys are next to each other. But I'd gotten to know Ray, and I felt that Ray had the range, and it's something I would do for anybody. Give him a chance. At least.
It's crazy how rare that is. Yeah, and it was a month. Really, I believe it was 2 months of auditions. Make any
sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you just cut somebody loose that you loved 6 months ago? Give him a chance. I mean, and I told the crew, like, hey, listen, if you don't like what he does, we'll recast it. No problem. But let's listen to Ray first and see if we can do. So Ray and I got in the booth and we did it about 5 different ways.
He wanted to hear, because he wanted to hear the voice, and then he wanted to hear, well, could he act different emotions in the voice? And we had to do the same script 5 different ways. One angry, one sad, one happy. It was intense. It was a big process. You must have felt
a lot of pressure at that point, like, because you already knew that it was on the line. Like, that's a lot 100%. Of pressure. Yeah.
Oh, it was the worst. Yeah.
Well, let's look at what it was like on the other side of the table. Harada, Dan, tell us what happened once that demo dropped. What came next?
If I remember correct, actually, just to another point actually on the voices. If I remember correctly from the survey results and the feedback, Tabata-san, there was one bit of feedback that he kind of just fixated on, quite honestly. It was, he kept referring to the voice as a Batman voice, because of the whole deep gravity voice. And that was one thing he always referred to as like, oh, no, we don't want, you always use the term Batman voice. And it's like, and then I think as well, because this was obviously so early on in the game's campaign, and the devs haven't had much exposure to like communities or the internet, let's say at that point. They weren't particularly used to meme culture, so there was one line. It was when when they're in the intro, when they're walking down the road, and Noctis says the money, and that was a big meme at the time. And I think they didn't realize that memes can be good, so they were like, oh no, we got to cut this, we got to get rid of it because people are responding negatively. Obviously, that's not always the case, but obviously, as the game was coming along and more promotion came out, they came to understand internet culture more, and so that kind of thinking went away. One of my favorite stories actually is convincing or educating the team on what a cheeky Nando's was. that was fun. You had a different question though, Alex.
It's all good. So we're looking at the inside works of the survey. So you reference about the Batman voice. What about Harada? What did you pick up from the survey?
It's actually funny, because during that time I was actually talking to the devs and everyone over in Shinjuku, and they were actually asking for like thoughts and everything like that. And it's funny that Tabata-san focused so much on the Batman voice because I'm not going to allude to any NDA stuff, but to raise credit and everyone, there was a direction, because whenever you do voice and stuff, you usually have characters, as Adam said, there's think Bond, so there is a reason. So I'll just leave it at that without being too vague and to the viewers. But so
we can say that I actually did a con where I was allowed to show the audition stuff. But yeah, one of the references was Christian Bale from Batman. Yeah, not doing his Batman voice, but doing his regular Bruce Wayne voice. Yeah,
right.
Yep. So there was that, and then I know that there was obviously a change because internally there was a change. So the idea of who and what Noctis was a bit different. So again, to give everyone the credit, like originally the direction
reason.
or the thought.
So I'll just leave it at that
Noctis
without
was,
being
as,
too vague and
Keith,
to the
alluded
viewers.
to
But
was a bit
so
more.
No,
they were
we can
talking
say that. I actually did a con
bit
where I was allowed to
different
show
than what obviously we've come to love Noctis for. And personally, I love the direction that was taken with Noctis. But yeah, so on that note, it was just more internally of like a lot of the developers, and they were just the same time as Ray and everyone else. They were just trying to figure out the characters and everything. So that's as much as I'll say without, my getting pings from other people saying, shut up right now. So.
Because they wanted him, originally they wanted him to be all kind of like, not that Noctis isn't cool, but they wanted more that kind of, I guess that Japanese aesthetic kind of cool, which is kind of like broody and.
What they think is cool, yeah. But what they think is cool, yeah. Let's just say that.
Now, I know that with Kingsglaive, they wanted the movie to really resonate for the Western audience. Was it the same idea with 15? It was important that it really, because Final Fantasy is huge in Japan, it has a huge following in the West, but I think that they were really pushing this game, and it was really important that the Western audience really appreciated this one. Do you think that, that had a big impact on his fears about voices and stuff?
I'm not sure if it had an impact on the voices, but that definitely was a huge shadow over the whole game. I mean, we don't need to go into the game's history too much because I'm sure everyone's aware.
Yeah.
But you got to remember the legacy and where the franchise was before this game came out. Right, 13 was the last offline game, which I love it. But obviously, it doesn't have the best reputation online.
Mm-hmm.
It's much better now these days because obviously all the haters have gone on to hating something else, as always the case, right? But then you also had Final Fantasy 14 1.0, which was also a huge disaster.
Flop.
Which
but look at it now.
Yeah, exactly. So like following those two, there was huge pressure, and you got to look at just the way the game is designed. That it's not turn-based, open world, all of those things were deliberate choices to appeal to the West. So, and obviously to do something different and with the franchise as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the voices were part of that as well. And then also worth remembering that the whole game, the four characters, 4 main leads are the linchpin of the whole game, right? Not just because they're the main characters, but it's because the Brotherhood was such an integral part of the game.
Right.
If the voices weren't right, then that falls apart, right?
Like I've discussed this with quite a few other people, that those who follow Final Fantasy, the series, for many people, 15 will be the only Final Fantasy they played during their childhood. Like when I grew up, I played 7, I played 8, I played 9, I had 10. For most people, 15 will be the primary game that they've because it's been such a long time since 13, and 14 doesn't really fit into that same category. That it has a massive impact on people, and that really brings me to my next point. I don't want to focus too much on before the game came out because we're here to celebrate 5 years. Let's talk about the pressure just leading up to the release. Keythe, what's it like from a creative perspective, having your work, just coming out to release? Obviously, we had the demo, so you'd seen how the game was going to go down, kind of, and then you get that final push towards. That must be quite the thrill.
It was a thrill, and I'll say too, just to jump on what Dan was saying, that there are a couple of different approaches when doing localization, because I understand this game was recorded in Japanese before we got a hold of it. So there were constraints within that we had to make sure that the sound cues were the same time, so they fit in the game the same way as the Japanese cues. There's a lot of technical aspect to it.
Is that what you commonly refer to as mouth flaps? Is that right?
No,
Is that
different than that. It was wave files. I mean,
Right.
these little waveforms, little chunks of audio that sit on a timeline.
Yeah.
And you've got to try to
Fit it in the
get
same.
within that space. And Dan was a genius at translating to time. But the two approaches, really, there's one that says, like, the Japanese performers created these characters, and we need to honor their performance by trying to match it as closely as possible. And so when you're working in that form, you'll listen to the Japanese 2 or 3 times and then try to bring that same energy. We were allowed to I think Dan one day came to me and said, I really would love it if this game felt like it was created for an English-speaking audience. And that was that opened up everything for us. We still had the technical elements that we had to match, but we were able to sort of bring the sensibility of our performers to these roles. And so as we began to develop this process, and because we were able to go chronologically, once we got to chapters 8, 9, and 10, we really had actors who were invested in their characters, who really knew them really well, and we were able to sort of plug them in on the timeline so that if Ray was the last person to come in, he could hear Robbie and Chris and Adam and as cues. Otherwise, they had to listen to me do bad impressions.
Right.
Great
I was more
impressions,
than
Kate. Great impressions. You
More
were
than happy.
fantastic at reading everybody else in. Thank
They
God.
were really
Yeah,
good.
come on, Keith, give us your best recipe. What's the best you can do?
Yeah. No, I was always like, the Gladio did a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Just Gladio, so down here. And
So-
then Adam's just a little bit more up here. And then sort of, he loves to hang over his consonant.
Story. True story.
Always fun. And then Robbie was a little tougher, but I get him up here every once in a while. I can sort of get up to Robbie every once in a while in the morning. And then Ray was just sort of closer to me, so it was a little bit easier. Just with a little bit of aspiration, I could kind of get to Noctis.
That's it.
And sort of reading those guys in. Practice. 4 years. I mentioned it went on for 4 years.
That's a long time.
I never got to do Renee. Maybe I did. I don't know. I think we had Luna in before we had you in. But yeah, I did a little.
You did a Cindy? I'd really like to hear a Cindy out of you.
Cindy's is right up here, isn't she? She's sort of high and excitable. Like I said, Dolly Parton adjacent. And then we have to just give props to Jack Angel, who played Sid, and we lost him just a couple of months ago. He is and will always be a huge hero of mine. So
I did not know that.
yeah,
That's
we
very
lost him a couple
sad.
months ago. He had a great long life. He was just such a joy to work with, and
Well,
just a lot of fun to be around. He was just a fountain of good nature.
Well, we thank him for his contributions for sure.
Love him. Love that man.
So I know that this is something that we've discussed before, Adam, Ray, but I would like to just generally get just a bit of an overview from the voice actors that are with us today, and because I really do want to talk about more where we are now. The game comes out, it's whoa, such a reaction. Adam, I know that you've told us the story about how the catchphrase just became this thing. I think you were in a supermarket sometime and you heard it, and then that just that was, you knew it, you knew it had just become this thing, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was in a supermarket minding my own business, and somebody over here, quite close to me, sort of said, "That's it." I bet to whoever was right next to them. And from the other side of the supermarket, somebody else said, "I've come up with a new recipe." And at that point, I realized that something had actually clicked in pop culture consciousness, and it was an amazing moment. I was like, oh my God, the reach of these things is extraordinary. And you don't know what's going to become a meme, and how long-lived memes can be, and how they mutate and become other things, and the longevity of all these special moments. And at the end of the day, any piece of entertainment that's worth its salt is really it's a string of gems of moments all sort of strung together, on a thread. And that's what I find in movies. If it has enough of those sort of gems, then you tend to remember these magic moments. And I think Final Fantasy is just filled with gems. It's one of those amazing pieces of entertainment.
15 has a lot of banter in it because there's a lot of
Sure
driving.
does.
There's a lot of banter. It's really enjoyable to listen to. It makes it feel natural. There's a lot of one-liners too, like the king of fishing and the come up with a new recipe. All these lines just for some reason just really resonated with the community. Keith, did you guys know, like, recording these lines, that they just were going to become like internet phenomenon going forward?
No, but I've come to understand that there are at least two approaches to banter.
Right.
One, because I was on Call of Duty, Black Ops 3, and Final Fantasy 15 at the same time. So on the Call of Duty side, the writer would come in and go, "Oh my God, I didn't play last night. I went 2 hours in one level. I didn't hear the same line twice." Whereas in Final Fantasy, on this side, we were doing a much smaller number of, particularly with the recipe line. I mean, that's a line that triggers how many times during the game?
Quite a few.
Over and over and over again. So there's that idea, and then it becomes a meme. It sort of becomes something that the fans can latch onto.
Right.
So there's that sort of, we want it to feel like you're in a battle zone. We don't want to hear the same thing ever. Or we want to create audience engagement by hearing the same line over and over again. And both are absolutely valid. But I was really taken by the different ways at fan service that these two development teams took.
Gotcha. Renee, Erin, two female roles, two wonderful roles in the game. As I keep expressing, like, I find that, in the 90s, there weren't a lot of leading, focused female characters. As we get into the millennium, there's a lot of amazing female characters in video games. And these days, it's common. Tell me, what was it like to see this game go out? You knew it was Final Fantasy. It's out there on the shelves. People are playing it. This is an iconic series, right? It's not... I mean, yeah, it's great to hear yourself in Call of Duty or whatever, Assassin's Creed, but there's the thing about Final Fantasy is it is just such an iconic series. To me, it's like the... I don't know, it's like the Harry Potter of movies, you know what I mean? It's such an iconic brand. Slightly biased. But tell me, how was that experience for you two?
Well, it was pretty amazing because I have friends that are serious gamers, and when they found out I was doing this, they flipped. A couple of them named their dog Noctis. I mean, like, huge fan. And also just to see the community, I was getting a lot of social media like tweets and on Instagram, like, of people dressing up like the character, like a Gentiana, which was so fun to see. And the fan art that was going around, that continues to go around, was super cool. So yeah, it was really fun and exciting to be part of something this big and well loved.
The cosplay for 15 is phenomenal. Like, I have seen...
Oh my God. Insane.
Every character from 15 I've seen cosplayed at some point at a KupoCon, right? Cindy's very popular to cosplay. I always really enjoy seeing when people... What's the proper word for when people do... I should know this word, but when, like, a guy will do a girl cosplay, or girl, what do you call that?
Gender bent, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you see a guy doing Cindy, and I love it. It's brilliant. It's such great cosplay, It's so creative to see that. Erin, what was it like for you seeing that reaction?
Very, very cool. I just like Renee was saying, when we were finally able to say that we were in it and it was coming out, I remember an Uber to a session or something, and the guy was just asking where I was going, and I said, "This is what I do," and he said, "Oh, anything," and I was like, "Oh, I was in this game that just came out," and he almost crashed the car. Like, he was so can I put this on Reddit? And I was like, okay. So yeah, it's amazing to get this kind of opportunity for something so beloved.
For sure.
Really
fun. Let's see what it's like on the inside. Dan, Harada, what was it like? I mean, I imagine there's got to be a lot of tension when a game of this magnitude comes out. 15, the whole argument, is it 15 years or 5 years or whatever? Putting it aside, there was a lot going on for this. There was a lot of hype. you know, what's it like on the inside? Is everyone ready to explode? Or is our feelings good? Is there concern? What was it like?
Oh yeah, with any game, there's always a bit of nerves and concern, but you
This
know,
isn't any
this
game,
isn't
right?
exactly. This is not only just a mainline Final Fantasy game, but it's also one with, you know, a lot of history. And actually, just to back up on, because you were talking about Cindy and cosplay, that was actually intentional from the dev team. They knew what they were doing when they designed that character.
Right.
Because we actually had quite a few discussions about her. Because as you can imagine, you know, we had some people who loved the character, we had some backlash on the design for obvious reasons. And so we had a honest discussion with the team. It's like saying, look, can we change it? Is it possible? And they were like, technically, it would be very difficult to, and we were already up against, you know, harsh deadlines internally. But they also said, it's like, we know that, well, they didn't say we know, but they were like, we want all of our we want cosplay to be a big thing, because it's like with all Final Fantasy characters. Obviously, the 4 main characters couldn't be changed because of the Rowan clothes and all that kind of stuff, and they was always set in stone. Cindy came much later in the process.
I mean, the boys all kind of have a similar style, you know, but Cindy definitely stands out for sure. I mean, and not just for some more reasons. Don't mention the assets. But like, but she's wearing bright yellow, for Christ's sake. She looks completely different. She's colorful. She brings some life, and even in the voice acting, I find that the character has a serious amount of colorful life to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If the character wasn't as fun and as, you know, enjoyable to be around, then no matter what they look like, no one will care, right? So it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, I just wanted to say that the team were conscious on that, and it's glad to see that what they were planning.
Oh, it had a very positive impact, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, back to your question about around launch, it was very, very busy, because as you can imagine, because it was a global launch as well. I think at the time it might have been, at least at this scale, Square Enix's first ever global launch.
Because it's usually staggered between the Asian release and the Western release by quite a bit, like a month. Am I right in saying? I feel like it was a month for 13 and more. 10. Right?
It depends on the game.
If I recall, I think actually it was quite a distance between 10, for example. I think 10 was like June, July, and then it was like November, December for the Western release, which is a huge gap.
Yeah, and even like in the other franchise as well, I think Kingdom Hearts, even up until, you know, just before Final Fantasy 15 came out, would be out. Yeah, maybe.
Do you know if there was a reason for that? Is that just the way the world is now? Everyone's so damn intertwined. Twitter, you know, spoilers.
I can answer that one. It's because of mainly Tabata was also looking. He's very, and I mean Danny Inoue, you know, who was from Square Enix Japan. Their direction was very Western focused, but it just shaped Square Enix in general as like the larger, and it's just in the game industry in general, the entertainment industry in general, is that you know, America, you know, the North American continent is one of the largest markets. So, and since places like Twitch, YouTube, and streamers, since things already kind of get shared around and everything like that, just in general now, a lot of companies, a lot of foreign companies try to hit and make America like a top focus, as well as now America's trying to take a lot of focus into, you know, even just like the Chinese market and everything like that too, and like that also to take into Japanese and Korean markets as well, just depending on the type of genre of games. But yeah, like that's mainly it. It's just that it's just the market and trying to just hit, because there's just so much competition now.
Right.
What it was like, what the industry was like in 2000 is nothing like what it is now.
I feel like a game drops every 10 minutes now. I cannot, honest to God, I can't keep up. Like I enjoy to game, I cannot keep up. I cannot.
That's why indie is like blown up more, is because it's more consumer friendly. And then
hilariously though, I find myself going back to playing games that I've already played before, and I find actually 15 now is getting more appreciated than ever. It's like a fine wine, you know. It's something you want to go back and play, because now it's got all these little extra bits and stuff, and you know, it's, and God, I mean, if anyone hasn't played 15 on a PC, do, because graphically that thing can really, I mean, I couldn't believe the effect. I think it's the NVIDIA stuff with the hair and the grass and, you know, holy shit. But anyway,
and those of you with Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 as well on back catalog.
I did try it on the 5. It looks really good performance-wise. I still think PC just has that little extra, like you can basically push it as hard as you want, right? But anyway, we're very short on time, so I'm going to keep pushing forward. Let's talk about where we are now, because it's really the focus here. We are 5 years since the release, I think Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. Picked to have it the weekend. I'd love to get feedback from all of you. How you're feeling, what the ride's been. Let's start with you, Adam.
Regarding where we at with Final Fantasy specific.
15 and everything that's come from it and all the events. Like, I know that you've come with us to Toronto, you've done Vancouver, you did London, you came to Glasgow with us. What's the ride been for you? Like, how's it been?
The ride has been absolutely spectacular. I think similar to what Ray was saying, I have a lot to be grateful for being a part of Final Fantasy, and to Keythe and to the developers and to my fellow voice actors on it, who've sort of opened their arms rather widely and sort of said, welcome. Also to events organised such as yourself, Alex. I have been lucky enough through Final Fantasy to go all over the world and meet the fans. And I've been a part of a lot of genre projects, specifically television shows. And I have to say the Final Fantasy fandom is exceptional as a fandom goes. They are dyed in the wool. They are super uber fans. And I've never actually experienced anything like it. It's very humbling at times, actually, to see the degree to which this game has affected people, has been a source of sort of solace and comfort for people who've been having tough times in their life, and they've found a message in the game or a strength of character and authenticity in each of the characters that has resonated with them enough to, some have said, take them out of very, very dark places indeed in their real life. Now, one can never anticipate that as a performer, that you get involved in one always hopes that might be the case, that you might be part of something that actually makes a real difference on the ground. But to actually be in something that certainly does that, and there's empirical evidence for it, it's very, very, very humbling. And it is something that continues to grow, and with I think it's a brand that people recognize, and it's going to keep going, and it's a sort of a driving force. And I think just to put a little sort of button on it, really, like for me, the Ignis character specifically, he's so sort of, without being a stick in the mud, he sort of has an ethical core to him. Something that's good about humanity to him, like, the stuff that's highest and best about humanity about him, that sort of resonates with people. And in a sea of television and film that sort of seems to celebrate the anti-hero or the antithesis of goodness or upstandingness, I'm so grateful to be a small part of the the large group of people that has created this character Ignis and the larger world of Final Fantasy, that has sort of created this character that lets people sort of look to what's best about their own humanity. And maybe that sort of nudges us to try and be better people out there in the real world. I know it certainly has stimulated me to examine myself more deeply and to hopefully be a better man from time to time. So yes, thank you to Square and to the whole fantasy and to the whole to the whole of Final Fantasy and to the whole fandom for allowing me to be a small part of it. It's been one of the great honors of my life, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Christ, that was quite moving. That was well said for sure. Yeah,
So
I feel like
beautiful.
I should hand you an award now, but I don't have one to give.
Well, do feel free.
Yeah, we'll organise
Send you an
it.
address at the end of the program.
Keythe, 5 years on, you're no stranger to the business. You had the joy of working on 15, then you had the episodes that came after it, and you had, I think you worked on Comrades as well. What's it been like for you looking back over these 5 years?
It was an astonishing time. It was a really amazing time. I think it might have been the first time in my career where I really felt like they let the reins out on me and allowed me to really do and help with these great actors to create an experience that was everything this game is: exciting, thrilling, deeply moving, a sense of camaraderie, and to what Adam said about folks who go through these difficult times in their lives. And the thing about gaming that's so unique is the amount of time that you spend with these characters and the amount of control you have over their agency. I think it just brings people in. I was blessed to play Thane Krios in Mass Effect 2, which was the first time I really saw the decision engine, where characters can choose how they respond to different things, and that makes the game different. Same thing's going on here. People feel an agency, they feel a connection to these characters because we were given the time and the freedom to dig deep, to really get into these characters. I remember working with Renee. We would turn the lights down, and we would get into this really just mystical place together, because that's what we needed to convey. That's what we needed to bring across.
Right.
And she and I were both like, yeah, let's do that. let's get deep. Let's touch souls if we can.
And it's exactly what you said, 40, 45, 50 plus hours, you grow an attachment to these characters. It's not something you can do in a movie. Yeah, a movie can blow you away. It's a couple hours, but it's a completely different attachment, right?
Yeah, and you don't have the agency. You don't have the controller in your hand.
You see them trying to do that now with movies, right? Trying to give you little options, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
I think, something like Kong Skull Island would make a great video game. It's a fun movie, but it really is sort of structured like a video game that plays out through 90 minutes. I remember going to see it and being like, damn, if I was in a VR headset and I turned over and saw Sam Jackson next to me in the helicopter trying to fly through the lightning storm to get to the island, my head would explode. So thank God that hasn't happened.
Yeah, we don't want your head.
Renee, how looking back, and I know that you spoke about the fans and stuff. What's it like looking back over 5 years?
Well, again, I'm so honored and humbled to be part of this huge, iconic game, and I think it's an inspiring game, which you can't say that about every game.
Yeah.
And the intimacy and the friendships and the hopefulness, and I mean, there are characters that when I look back at some of the scenes, like they're literally emotional, and that is something so unique, I think, to this game. And I still see, like, the fans are diehard, like from the beginning, throughout, and definitely for 15. But I mean, like Keythe was saying, I loved stepping into that world whenever I would go in, and the lights it was complete darkness, because there was something about that. And just to step into that world and just pick it up and just, I mean, I remember seeing what the character looked like, but just from an acting standpoint, just inhabiting these characters on a deeper level than you're playing a game. It was just, you got to really portray like something, like a real kind of person in that world for a small amount of time. And it just it felt more like a film at times to me than a game, which was really interesting because the dialogue was so good. And so I look back at it with a lot of gratitude to have been part of it, and to work with someone like Keythe, who also is a voice actor himself, and which I think helps immensely in the process.
Because he can see both sides of things, I guess.
Yeah, and then just the creative collaboration back and forth, and there was always an ease about it, and I felt always like taken care of, but also creative, like just playful in that way, which is what you want in any of these experiences.
Keythe, you sound like you're the MVP of 15. Like, seriously, I have to get you a special T-shirt. Ray, the impact for you, I know you've already touched on it, has been huge. 5 years. I do you ever, like, I mean, it must be quite emotional to like reflect on the just the gigantic impact it's had.
I mean, like Adam's brought up, is meeting these people at conventions. You're constantly reminded about the impact that the game has and how rare it is. I love that the story pulls no punches. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the DLC so much, because they kind of retell the story and change the endings and all that sort of stuff. I love that it ends the way it does. I love that it tells the story it does. I love that it has the audacity to tell that kind of story and to have such really, really tough things happen, because it really reaches out to people and say, oh, you're dealing with these subjects in a really serious matter. It means a lot to me. Like they've said, it's as actors, we don't get to see people's reactions. It's only after the thing comes out that we get to see it. And I feel that after 5 years, I remember when the game came out, I was like, oh man, everyone's going to play this and want to meet me at a convention. And that was not the case. It took like about a year before like people really came out of the woodwork and came to conventions to see us and really started celebrating the game. And that number has only grown as more and more people play it. I think Square just came out. They said it's almost at 10 million copies, like 9.8 million, which is that number only gets bigger. And I think people recommend that game to their friends.
And it doesn't like the fandom has not diluted at all, right?
It hasn't diluted because I think it is in itself one very, very particular moment, one very particular feeling of family and friendship that we don't get in a lot of other media these days. And I think that's why people return to it again and again and again.
Erin, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but how was it for you now, you know, sitting here looking back on the 5 years that have passed? You're seeing all the, as you said, the cosplay, the artwork, a very iconic character for sure. You know, what do you say to yourself when you look back at the last 5 years?
Well, the world is a very different place than it was 5 years ago. I don't know if you guys noticed, we've been through kind of a lot. Just to kind of jump on what everybody else said, I remember loving going into that world as well, as much as game players do. I love going into that booth and getting to be this, you know, plucky mechanic for a couple hours and play with Keythe. We didn't turn the lights down, which makes me sad now. I think it would have created kind of very different vibe for Cindy.
Cindy likes light. She wants a lot of light. She
likes light. We put on a disco ball. So I think it is so beautiful and important to it's very cool to work on a project that's coming to you from another place, like to be, I do a lot of dubbing as well, and to be able to experience kind of another culture that way and bring your own performance to it just goes to show, you know, how global the fandom is. We get to play a little part in that, which is, like you said, really just humbling and beautiful. And it's about humanity and it's universal. All of these things that we all felt and performed and people feel while they're playing. It's
a lot of people have a connection to 15. A lot of people are really, you know, and you do see the impact. And there's, you know, I've been organizing KupoCon for it's about 5.5 years now. Ray came to the first one, and I thought after the first couple years, 15 would start to, you know, fade, and the energy would move on to the next title. Not at all. Like, why we wouldn't be organizing 4 launch events across the entire globe. Sorry, not launch events, anniversary events, if that vibe wasn't still there, right? It's totally held. So I think that really speaks volumes for the game's success. Harada, how about for yourself? Obviously, you're no longer with the company, but, you know, looking back, I know that it was a big deal for you to work on that project, and you should be very proud of it, of course.
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. No, it's been huge. Honestly, Final Fantasy 15, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now in my career, working on the games or directing the stuff I'm doing right now, literally in my position, if it wasn't for this. And I can safely say that there's a lot of projects, even animation projects, some that even recently were huge on Netflix. They were literally inspired by this game. Like, I'm not kidding. When I hear people like within agencies, or we're talking, and there's always examples. Final Fantasy 15 has popped up more than like 5, 6, 7 times that I've and I had no influence on it. They're just like, yeah, I really like the banter, or I really like this, or there's that one character. And so it's definitely had a huge impact, not just in the gaming industry, but just the entertainment industry as a whole. And I just feel incredibly blessed. So
well, thank you for your contributions, son. Dan, I know that working for Square was a huge thing for you, and I know that
Absolutely.
I know that I like it because you've been with Warner Brothers for about the same time now. I think 4 years, isn't it?
Three and a bit.
Okay,
years.
so I know that moving on to another role was it was a big move for you, and Square and Final Fantasy was a huge part of your life. Tell us about it, the last 5 years, and looking over that everything that came with it.
Yeah. As as Adam mentioned, games that can touch people and help people through dark times. Final Fantasy, I was one of those people, and for me it was Final Fantasy 7 that it's cliched as that might sound, was the one that really helped me. And there's been a handful of other games that have as well, but the Final Fantasy franchise has always been there through my entire life. So being any part of it was always a huge honor, and I do not take any of that for granted. And working specifically on Final Fantasy 15, it again literally changed my life in a different way, but I learned so much from it. I did so much for it. And I'm getting a bit teary-eyed.
I'm getting teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You talked about we mentioned briefly, on the run up to launch, and when tensions were high, like, is the game going to do well, because we needed to do well, blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But literally that week, I went from helping out organizing a launch event in London to flying to Toronto, to flying to somewhere else in the US, which I forget, to flying back to the UK.
Oh, is it for Comic-Con?
No, this was all for actually it was to meet YouTubers.
Okay. Like a launch tour, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. Then back to the UK to go to Brighton, then to go to Antwerp, which I was told about while I was in Brighton, to get on a plane the next day to go for the launch event in Antwerp. And it was, so it was a crazy whirlwind. But like everyone involved was, they were champions. The dev teams, everyone here on this call, the game wouldn't be anywhere where it is without them. And sorry, I know we're a bit stretched on time, but do we have, because I'd like to what you can't see actually on the camera, is like on the right side is actually my 15 shrine.
Your shrine,
which 5 years later I still have everything up. And there's one thing, let me just I want to
go grab it. Well, look, while Dan's grabbing that, I do want to try and grab a couple questions from people who are watching. So if you do have a question, throw them in. The mods will try and grab just a couple before we wrap up here. Go on then, Dan. What you got?
So it's this small thing. It looks small. It is small. It's just a pin.
Right.
But I don't know how this reflection.
Yeah, I can see it.
So this. Oh, there we go. So this pin, just a regular pin badge.
Right.
So before the marketing campaign really kicked off for Final Fantasy 15, the dev team, Tabata-san, insisted that as many people from Square Enix come out to the studio in Japan to learn about the game and to experience some of the things, to really understand it. So, there was so many they took us locations down. They showed us some of the locations where some of the dungeons and some of the areas were, took inspiration from. They had like a giant kind of cook-off to kind of show off all the food in the game and show all the kind of experience and stuff. And long story short, this pin was given to everyone who was there.
Right.
And I still.
Oh, that's really cool. It's the little things that matter, right? Like it's the little mementos that create memories.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've been looking during this call for any photos I have of the team through my old hard drive. Being virtual, I could probably share some of this stuff. But sadly, I don't have any photos of Danny in a way, since he is so legendary now. After this call, It exists.
We'll have to
and I know
try
there
and
is.
we'll have to try and put something together. Anyway, look, we're taking questions very, very quickly. But one thing that we've done during these roundtables that have been really successful, and I never give you a heads up that we're going to do it because it never goes down well if I do so, but we just take a couple lines from the game and we ask if you'll just reenact them for us. So we've just taken a couple things. And then we also went and had a quick look and see if we could find any memes, and that wasn't difficult. So we found a couple things that we thought would be funny. So while we're taking questions from people, if you guys could grab up your Zoom chat there. This is a quick scene between Cindy, Ignis, and Noctis. And it looks like that. You'll have to blow it up so you can see. And I was hoping that we could... It's a nice early on scene. Yeah. It's quite, I mean, for me, this is like probably just simplicity at its best. It's iconic, it's Hammerhead, it's, you know, it's just one of the first moments I remember.
Should have warmed up. All right. Hey there, y'all kept a girl waiting. Now, which one's the prince? Aha. Hello, your highness. Congrats on the wedding.
Not hits just yet.
Lady Lunafreya's groom-to-be here in Hammerhead.
Apologies for taking so long.
You best save your apologies for Pawpaw. I'm Cindy, Sid's grease monkey granddaughter.
That's really cool to hear the characters come to life like that. Okay, here's another good one. This is between Gentiana.
I didn't need these 5 years ago, I'll tell you that right now.
I should be wearing my glasses. Right now, everything's a blur. It's either because this isn't water or because I need glasses, one or the other. So this is between Noctis, Gentiana, and I think it's just the two of you in this one. Oh no, there is a little bit of Ignis. Okay, here it comes.
Gentiana.
Hear me, O King of Stone. By the storm sender's blessing will the path to the stone be opened. The oracle goes hence in her king's name.
Luna, where is she now?
The eye of the storm. When the covenant is forged, the oracle and ring shall await their king at the walls of water. Stray not from the path.
She's a messenger, a spirit faithful of the oracle.
Very, very nice, thank you. So then I took a little bit of a dig, and I found this, which I mean, I probably laughed at this too long. You're probably not even going to find it funny, but I had a bloody good laugh at this one. This is between Ignis and Noctis. Nice. I laughed hard.
Hey, Iggy, want to hear a joke?
Very well.
I don't always take a nap, but when I do, I'm knocked out cold. Nice.
And then this one I thought was a bit rude, but I actually, well, not rude as in like, you know, lewd, but I thought it still made me laugh.
Noct, you need to find a hobby.
What do you mean? I have a hobby.
Being sad isn't a hobby.
Dang it.
Well, thank you for being such all good sports. I'm just going to have a quick flick at the questions here, and then I'm going to sign you off, guys, because I know I've held you longer than planned. We'll blame Adam and his unexpected hike.
I'm amazed with Adam's arm strength to holding that phone up there for 90 minutes. That's hard.
Secretly, he's got someone holding it for him.
For many years.
Adam, I feel like we got to mention your hair while we're at it. You cut it.
Yes, I had to cut it for this new project. I mean, the hair had been growing quite well for about 5 years. And this thing that I'm on right now, they were like, I'm afraid not, mate. It has to go. So it was with great sadness that I cut off several inches.
Oh, well, my wife loves it. She said, "Oh, Adam's cut his hair. He looks great." I was like, "All right, calm down now."
I thank you very much.
I think the best comment of all the announcements when we announced all the guests, I think, was on Ray's, and someone had put it went Noctis now with 200% more hair, and that was probably my favorite. Yeah.
Looking good, mate. Very good.
Thank you. Trying.
Okay, so let's just take a couple questions here. We got a good one here from Ellie. She says, "Do you have a favorite moment with your character?" Somebody feel free to just take it from me if you have a favorite moment.
there's just so many. There's whenever I get this question, it's like there's the funny ones or the sad ones or whatever. I do like the very end when Noctis says goodbye to his friends, walk tall, and goes into the throne room. That's always just a great 3 or 4 minutes of weighty acting stuff. That's always fun to watch.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
What about you, Adam?
I think his insistence after being blinded of insisting that he carry on with them for as long as they'll let him. I just love that. Again, sort of weighty acting stuff. But also, I mean, the dry humor has been such a gift with Ignis. I just love being able to I loved being able to be given those lines and to be able to try and make to bring the humor out. So yeah, a gift like that. Thank you, writers.
We've got another question in here. I'm just trying to pick the best ones here because there's so many. I think this is... I'm sure I've asked Ray and Adam this before, but we'll just throw it out there. If you could play any other character, who would you have liked to have played?
Dino, the jewel salesman. He's very fun. Having fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, Noctis just for the sheer breadth of experience, but Kenny Crow. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd like to know Kenny Crow, the untold story. I'd like to know what he gets up to when we're not seeing.
There are a lot of questions coming in, but we are already so well over time, so I think it would be the right thing to do to wrap up. I do apologize, we did go way over today. But look, I want to say thank you so much for being here and celebrating this. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for giving me something to make an event about for the last 5 years. It's been a hell of a joy from, I've met some of you in person, and I hope to get to meet the rest of you in the future. There's been so many great moments to pull from. I'm almost sure I'm saying that when Harada, when you first met, was at KupoCon in New Jersey, which is weird.
No?
Yeah, is that right?
It's perfect, yeah.
And there's just been so many great experiences. Like I can just pull from, God, it's just been such a ride. Like when we went to, I took Adam, we went to Distant Worlds. And then I got to the venue and I ripped the envelope open for the tickets, and I realized I actually had the merchandise price list instead of the tickets for the event, and panicked like shit. Like there's just been so many great moments, some that are so far extracted from the actual game, but they're because of the game. So for that, I'm incredibly thankful, and thank you to all of you for all that you did, whether it's on microphone or behind the scenes. On behalf of the massive fandom, I would like to thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
And I think the fandom's always growing. I really do. I think now that it's available on all the latest generation consoles, 15 I think is included with the PlayStation Plus as standard now. As you said, it's on Xbox Series S and X now. It's everywhere. It's so playable. So if you haven't had a chance, do go play it. I will be right...
I'll plug, I just forgot. I should have done this. Robbie would have gotten so mad, but he wasn't able to make it today. But Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we are going to play all of Final Fantasy 15 all the way through, and all the DLCs as much as we possibly can without sleep on stream with special guest Keythe, Farley, and possibly Adam. Come see us at Twitch. If he remembers to come down, we might have to go hiking with him. Twitch.tv/loudannoying from 6 p.m. on Monday all the way till Wednesday night. We're going to get through them all.
And there were quite a few people who did want to be here today, I should say. Darren DePaul would like to have been here. Robbie Damon said he would have loved to have been here. Eden said she would have loved to have been here. There's lots of people who really wanted to be here, but unfortunately couldn't due to other commitments or skiing holidays. Lucky them. So I'm going to sign this off. Stay with me, guests, just for 1 second. But to those on the stream, I'll be right back with the information on our upcoming event. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Well, I think we best not delay. We best jump right back into it. So again, thank you very much to our guests for joining us today. Apologies, we ran a couple minutes late there. It's very difficult to get everyone in and ask everyone the questions without not being sat here for like 2-3 hours. So for that I apologize. There's only so much you can accomplish on a live stream, but it was great to have everybody here. If you are enjoying the stream, I would ask for your support. We do multiple events online every year for free. Since COVID, we've really pushed the boat out. In fact, actually, I'm wearing my 15 KupoCon anniversary hoodie. I don't think we have that many left. If there's a real demand for it, we might be able to put in another order. So if you are interested, hit that waiting list button, and then so we know that there's a lot of interest. If you are interested in supporting KupoCon, just basically follow the links on your screen right now. So you've got kupo.shop, which will be closing on the final day of the month, and then you've got our Patreon, which kind of keeps us flowing all year round. So we need to jump right into these events. I'm only going to be here for a few minutes, but we are hosting anniversary events in Toronto, Los Angeles, Melbourne, and London. And we're really excited for it, like super excited to be able to do this. We wanted to do it this year, but COVID, there was really not much we could do. So we're going to kind of push forward in the best fashion that we can and hope that no other strains of COVID will affect this. But if they do, we'll postpone, we'll make it happen. But we really do hope that it doesn't come to that. And as many of you know, we do have a major event coming up in London in February, Retropom. So you can check out information on that, kupocon.com/Retropom, which is in London, February 5th. And then we also have another event in Montreal, which is kind of penciled in right now for the end of next year, details of which will be shared in the future. But we are here to talk about 15, so let's talk about the anniversary tour. So we're using the hashtag FFXV tour. We changed it up from an original one. It's easier to understand. The other one looked like we were talking about value-added tax. Long story. So we have our 4 venues locked down, and I'm going to fly through this information for you right now. So as I said, we're coming to Toronto, Los Angeles, Melbourne, and London. These are not KupoCon conventions. They're more like cocktail parties. They're a celebration. So there are limited numbers. It's a drinks reception with special guests are wandering and everyone just coming together to enjoy the fandom. It's a kind of dress up and enjoy yourself kind of thing. Cosplay is absolutely fine and encouraged. If you do decide to cosplay, that's perfectly fine. So we're going to go through each event right now. This is the first time we've shared this information. I'm quite excited to do so. So we're going to start in Toronto. The aim is to get all of these events done before the 6th anniversary arrives, right? That's the aim. So we're starting in Toronto, and that's going to be on April 2nd. Now, those of you who follow KupoCon will know that's actually the weekend that we're doing our pop-up event in Toronto. So you'll actually have access to a store and a quest log that will see you going around the city of Toronto. So you can kind of double hit on this one, which is great. So it is part of the KupoCon pop-up event. So you kind of got the extra perks of being able to see some of the other stuff that KupoCon does. Again, it's not a full KupoCon event. It's kind of us testing our waters as we get back into the North American market since COVID. So April 2nd, limited to 200 people, and tickets will go on sale January 25th at 6 p.m. local time, so that would be Eastern. Patrons receive a 24-hour advance, and the tickets will be $30. Now, all the ticket prices are pretty much the same, give or take the taxes, and just in their suitable currency. So it's going to be at the Western Harbour Castle, obviously, because it's the venue of the pop-up. Beautiful venue, right down on the waterfront. It's just lovely. We used it for the Final Fantasy VII Remake launch event. We're using a different room this time, a little bit of a different layout, prettier view, but it's a wonderful hotel. We do have a room block available, details which will be shared in the days ahead. As I said, we don't have too much time to talk about each event. We will be in the weeks ahead, but today's really kind of just about getting that information to you so you can kind of start making plans. So after that, we then head to LA. Really excited. I've actually never been to LA, so this is going to be a bit of a quick in and out trip for me. But we're coming to the Sheraton Gateway. Now, we recognize that one event for the whole United States is not great, but unfortunately, we are limited on our resources. There's only so much that we can do, so we've chose LA. It's great for getting guests, as you can imagine. And the Sheraton Gateway is like kind of, it's very comfortably between downtown LA and LAX airport. So it's really easy to get to. It's a great venue. This is actually a poolside party. So we've got this beautiful area that goes out by the pool. So there's outdoor space, but there's also more than enough indoor space for everybody. We really only accounted for the indoor space, but we do have access to the outdoor space as well. It's going to be something really, really wonderful, this one. I'm really looking forward to this. So tickets will go on sale January 27th, 2022, and tickets will go on sale at 10 a.m., and that would be local time, so that's Pacific time. And the tickets will be $25 US. Again, really excited to be able to come back to the States. It's been a while. The last time we held an event in the States was the bigger POM, which was 2019 before the pandemic hit. And that was in Newark, New Jersey. Very excited for that one. Yeah. So, and again, obviously the imagery is, they're not going to be tables like that. It's a stand-up cocktail party, as I've said. We then move on to Melbourne. It's going to be on June 4th. We're definitely not taking any breaks. It's at the La-di-da bar. I feel like a real pillock saying that, especially with a British accent, but yeah, La-di-da. It's at the La-di-da bar and restaurant. It's in downtown Melbourne. It's a beautiful venue. We've booked out the Champagne Lounge. Again, we're limiting it to 200. We could do more, COVID, etc., blah, blah, blah. We want to keep it comfortable. So tickets for that will go on sale on February 15th. That will be 9 a.m. So that would be local Melbourne time. And once again, patrons receive that 24-hour advance, and the tickets will be 35 Australian dollars. Again, it roughly equates to about the same amount, whatever currency, plus any applicable taxes. So quite excited for that. As many of you who follow KupoCon know that we've been hoping and we've been praying to come to Melbourne for quite a while. We had an event, Pomza, which was scheduled, but again, COVID threw a spanner in that works. And while we are hoping to eventually reschedule that one, we want to at least bring this 15 celebration to you. And then after that, we move on to London. So London will be hosted at the Rembrandt Hotel. This is in Kensington, I believe, if I recall. It's quite close to the Royal Albert Hall. It's a beautiful hotel, very upmarket, very posh, very fancy. We've booked out the King Suite and the Queen Suite, and we've got a nice little lobby area, kind of got the whole floor to ourselves. It'd be really nice, really private. And just a really great experience. Again, limited to 200, could take more, but choosing not to. Tickets on sale March 30th, and that they will go on sale at 6 p.m. That's GMT, local London time. And patrons again receive that 24-hour advance, and tickets will be £22, slightly higher due to the VAT. So those are your 4 events that we're planning. Super excited for them. So pleased to be able to unload that information to you today. It's been something that we've been talking about for a long time. I just want to briefly touch on 2 other things, and that's the loot bags, so that when you come to the event, you get your ticket and that sees you through the door, and you're welcome to enjoy the event, have a drink or 2. Yes, please note that this will be a adult only event, so based on wherever you live or wherever the event, is being hosted, if there are restrictions for drinking, for example, in the UK it's 18, then you are required to be of legal drinking age to access the event. I do apologize, but for the evening events, that is how it operates. So you get your ticket, you come to the event, but we're also working on some beautiful loot bags. Now, I can't quite show you what's in the loot bag today. I really hoped to, but unfortunately, with everything that's going on with COVID and a lot of shipping delays, I can't show you all of it. But I can give you a kind of an idea. So you see the bags here. You get a nice gift bag. It's a heavy-duty bag, kind of like what you'd get if you went to I want to say Victoria's Secret or Calvin Klein store, but it's got that kind of jewelry bag type feel, a boutique bag. It's a beautiful bag, themed as you can see, with blue navy handles and our logo on both sides. And then in the bag, you're going to find some really unique items. Now, those of you who came to our remake, Final Fantasy VII remake launch tour, you know that we did custom game cases, we had materia, we had coasters. What else did we have in there? We had music, we had trading cards, we had lots of cool things. And we're doing similar stuff for the 15th anniversary. So there will be some unique Tripom cards in there. There's going to be an engraved pen. There'll be something to do with the regalia in there. There's something to do with Ascension. the Oracle. There's something to do with coins. There's something to do with the kings in there. There's lots of really cool stuff that we're working on. And we're going to reveal all of that before tickets go on sale. And then when you purchase your ticket for the event, you'll have the choice of whether or not you want to just get the ticket, or you can additionally add on the loot bag. And then you just get everything in this loot bag on arrival. So we'll be doing pre-orders of that, because then we know how much to bring with us. Because as you can imagine, it's quite the challenge shipping the stuff around the world. So logistically, it makes sense to do pre-orders. Items will be available on the day, but they won't be available as a combined bundle or bag. It will be individual items. So it is much better value just to get it as the bag. So do keep that in mind. Apologies, I know I'm rambling off a lot of information, but we are well over time and I don't want to keep you too long, as I appreciate for those watching in Europe, it is getting late. So that is the bag. I know some of you unfortunately can't make it to these events, and that's okay. We are going to take the remaining stock and we will put that on our website, kupo.shop, in the near future. We already have these hoodies. I bloody love this hoodie. On the back is a huge 15 logo. It's a little bit hard to show you right now. I could just, can you see that? It's a really nice hoodie. It's not too heavy. It's really comfortable. So anyway, if there's a lot of demand and your size is not available, hit the waiting list and we'll see what we can do. One final thing to touch on, Kingsglaive. I had the joy of sitting down with Liam Mulvey, Adrian Boucher, and Will Bowden last weekend, and we did a commentated version of the entire movie, and that's going to be playing here on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Very excited for that. Just grab yourself a copy of the movie. Perhaps, I think in the US it's still streaming on Netflix. If not, if you're in the UK or Europe, check Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can rent it for a very small amount. You can also purchase it very easily these days online, or maybe you've got a copy lying around. Perhaps you have even your copy that came with the collector's edition, special edition, when 15 came out. So just grab a copy of your movie, pop it in your player there, and turn down the volume and listen along to the movie and listen to the commentary. It's really quite special, and I do think you'll enjoy it. And again, one more plug. If you enjoy what we do, you've enjoyed the experience, you enjoy the effort that we put in, we spend tens of thousands of dollars every year. Honestly, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands now. Producing wonderful artwork like this, producing wonderful loot items, putting on these free events. Your support means everything to us. In fact, this is our last event of the year. So any and all support is very much appreciated. If you don't have the financial ability to support us, no problem. Don't worry about it. Just maybe throw out a tweet. Let us know that you enjoyed the show, because your feedback, letting us know that you're out there and you're enjoying what we do, drives us to continue to do these things. And I would also just like to finally end by saying that I know a lot of you out there are still struggling with the pandemic. It has been a difficult time. I hope that these events do help you connect with the fandom. I hope that it brings you some comfort in what has been a very troubling 2 years for us all now. And I do hope that better times are ahead of us. I hope you can join us at these physical events. But if you can't and you're looking for a bit of a, leg up, a bit of help, then consider checking out our special program, which we call For Health and Home. You can find it on our Patreon. You don't have to pay to access it. It's a 15-week program where we're kind of trying to revitalize people, focus on your mental health, your physical health, kind of start to reawaken, come out of that hibernation and start to realize that the world does continue and that we got to push forward. So if you are struggling and you need some extra help, do check out that program. It's been lovingly created and it is 15 themed. Again, my thanks to you for joining me today, and my thanks to everyone who will watch this stream in the days, weeks, months, and years to follow. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Enjoy the commentary of Kingsglaive tomorrow. Take care. Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.